Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the show. Hope you'll come back often and tell your friends about it so that they can have some fun with us too. Before we start the regular show, I want to introduce Father Ron Walters for the show's prayer. Father Walters, welcome.
O God, as we create in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created this world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father. We appreciate it. And now, Phil, if we could run the sponsors video, Brennan's Model.
For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products for the O-scale market. Our flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. Its prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, we've developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Additionally, we offer craftsman kits that anyone can build with complete photographically illustrated instructions that assume you've never done this before. The Sonky Wanky Coffee Company is the latest and the fourth kit to be added to our ongoing and highly popular limited edition Ellison Tribute series. These kits take Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level with Dennis' spin. The idea being that if Frank were alive today, this is how we would build these models using modern methods and materials. Use the QR code to visit our website.
And now I want to turn to Chris Corse and Greg Cassidy for the upcoming My Builds. The next one is July the 24th. And then the one after that is August the 21st. Chris, Greg, welcome.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Pull up the slide here. All right. Next week is the My Build. It's a free-for-all, July 24th. Please have your photos to me by the 21st. And if you have not participated before, please include a photo of yourself so that we can set you up with an intro card. And yeah, I guess that's about all I really wanted to throw out there tonight. I was going to bring up the challenge, but I don't have that slide on this computer. So I'll defer to Greg and see what Greg has.
I do want to remind people that it doesn't necessarily have to be in any particular scale or even necessarily about anything having to do with your layout. I've got something that I'll be showing that has nothing to do with my layout. Just something that you're working on, something you're building, some modeling project. It can be a standalone, or it can be a building or a car or whatever you might have on your workbench.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm reminded of when Greg said that is we haven't seen him in a while, but Tony Dixon always presented some things that were farm related, and really it pulled us out of our element and showed us some different things that you can do with modeling. So that's perfect. Something that pulls us out of our element, shows us something a little bit different. But either way, we want to know what you're working on. We want to see it, and hopefully we can help inspire each other with that. So that being said, I will turn it back over to you, Jim, unless you've got something else to add, Greg. Okay.
Guys, thank you both for everything. I really do appreciate it. Chris, thank you so very much for everything that you've done to get us to this point. Because when we first started this, I forget how many years ago it was now, 4, I believe, something like that. We've never done anything like this before, and we've learned a lot along the way. I do want to mention this. Chris mentioned that the next Wednesday show. Next Wednesday show is really going to be special. For one thing, you're going to see Father Ron Walters show you how to use a plastic kit and have it painted in such a way where it looks like it's a wooden kit. And I think that's going to be something that all of us can benefit from because there's a lot of plastic kits out there that are really cheap compared to some of the other kits you'll find on the market. And for a lot of people, everything on our layout doesn't have to be $300, $400, $500. The other thing that we've got is we're going to have an announcement of a new project. And I think that this is really going to be something that the S-scale market in particularly is going to really be interested in. We have 3 manufacturers who are going to be producing a scene that's going to be animated. It's going to have a structure that has to be built. It's going to have some animation that's got to be installed. It's going to have a freight car. It's going to have some truck chassis. And it's going to be able to be, that core of a scene is going to be able to be used on an S-scale model railroad, a diorama, an S-scale farm scene, an S-scale military scene, an S-scale anything that you're working on, any hobby that you might be in. And these 3 manufacturers have come together and they have developed a way for this to work, I believe, that everybody is going to be interested in. And we're going to roll this out on our show on the 24th, right before we're going to do the My Build. So the 24th is going to be an important show for us because of Father Ron's effort at the painting, and Tom Farrell is completing the Spillane building. And we're going to be doing this announcement for the first time to introduce the 3 manufacturers and show what the scene is going to have the capability of doing for an S-scale model railroader or for anybody in any other S-scale hobbies. And hopefully, in my opinion, this is going to be the first of many such scenes. And I really do appreciate the work that the 3 manufacturers have put into this. And I think that you're going to enjoy finding out more about this on our show on the 24th. So in addition to wanting to see what everybody's working on and building, in addition to see what Father Ron is going to show you on how to paint, and in addition to see Tom Farrell complete his Spillane building, you're going to be able to see the rollout of this project. I hope that I hope you see it as well as we believe it is going to appeal to you. So with that said, next thing I want to talk about briefly is the National Narrow Gauge Convention in Pittsburgh, September 11th to the 14th. And we're interested to finding out if anybody is going and might be able to give a little time at our table that they provided for us there at this convention. And if you're going and can provide us a little space or some time at our table while you're there, if you'll just let one of us know, either me or Phil, who is going, Phil Edholm, or Tom Farrell, who is going. And Phil, I think you have an announcement on a special room rate that they may be able to pick up with you.
Yeah, so thanks, Jim. So Tom and I are going to kind of set the table up and get it set up, and it's going to be in the vendor area. The reality is that it's kind of tough to spend the whole vendor time there. Want to do a few layout tours and some other stuff. So if anyone is going and can spend an hour or so, just drop in and be there, talk to people, it'd be great. So if anyone is going to the narrow gauge convention, Tom and I actually have reserved a Airbnb. Interesting enough, from what I can tell, it seems to be right on Railroad Avenue. It's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, so you have to share a bath. The important thing is this is basically Monday to Sunday for $826. So with 3 bedrooms, you can kind of divide the total expense. I'd be about $950. So divide that by 3. So you can stay for the full week for $300 versus the hotel room costs. Seems to be a pretty reasonable place. It has, you know, reasonable bedrooms. There's some pictures of the bedrooms here. Tom's going to drive, so he's going to have a car. This red dot here is where the hotel is. This is actually right here. This dot is about where they don't give you the exact address on Airbnb, but kind of could tell from their thing and what's there is where the house is. So it's really less than a mile. It's about 3/4 of a mile to drive over. So I figure we'll just drive over. We'll have a car. So if you have a car, you'll be on your own, or if you don't, you can ride with Tom and myself. So if anyone's interested, send a chat to either Tom or myself, and we'll get you in and get a much more reasonable way to stay and be part of the convention. Anyway, back to you, Jim.
And frankly, if you get tired of walking around the vendor area, we've got chairs at our table. Come and sit down. Let Phil and Tom get a break, and you can relax and help out New Tracks at the same time. So if anybody can help, hope this cheaper room rate might be an influencer for some people to reconsider and maybe attend the convention. Now, with that said, I want to start the show. And our first segment is S-Scale Modeling. The National Association of S-Gaugers is the sponsor for this. If we could run their video, please, Phil.
Are you looking for something a little different in your model railroading? The National Association of S-Gaugers suggests you take a look at S-Scale. An S-Scale model is just 36% longer than an HO model, but it's 2.5 times the volume. The larger size translates to increased ease of maintenance, more durable details, and improved electrical and mechanical reliability. S-Scale modelers use accurately proportioned wheels and track systems with KD-style couplers. Exceptional S-Scale models and layouts are being built in both standard and narrow gauge. Locomotives and rolling stock are available from a number of manufacturers in both ready-to-run and kit form. Equipment is available both new and through an active secondary market. There are numerous manufacturers of track, buildings, vehicles, and details, both ready to run and in kit form, available for those who love to build. And many S modelers enjoy kit bashing and scratch building in the larger size S offers. To learn more, visit the website of the National Association of S-Gaugers. Here you will find the history of the scale, information about clubs in your area, see layouts and connect with current manufacturers and online groups, plus much more. In short, the website has everything you'll need to explore model railroading in S-Scale today. Come on board and visit soon.
And now I want to introduce the host for this segment of our show, Jamie Bothwell. Jamie, welcome.
Hi, Jim. How you doing? We're coming to you live from the NASG convention in Harrisburg.
Well, welcome, Jamie. Thank you so much.
We're going to introduce you to some S-Scalers. This is Ben Truesdale. I hope I said that right.
You did.
Okay.
Hello.
Tell us about your hopper car, Ben.
All right. Well, I've got 3 of them, but they're 3D printed. I drew them using various models and drawings and prototyped them, and I've passed 2 of them off to 3D Central Printing to print and offer them for sale. That's about it.
Yeah.
And the next one that's in line is a 4180 air slide. And none of these cars have existed in S-Scale before.
So Ben's quite an innovator. Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
This is Phil Scandra.
Phil Scandura.
Phil is attending his very first NASG convention all the way from Arizona. He drove here all the way from Arizona. And it's
right.
probably hotter here right now than it is in Arizona. So
I am the assistant scale editor for the Dispatch, and Jamie's right. I drove all the way with my wife from Arizona to attend my first convention. And if you are an S-Scaler watching this right now, you're at the wrong end of the computer. You should be here in the hallway talking to you folks out in the audience.
okay, thanks. This is John Racy from the Detroit area.
I belong to the Southeast Michigan S-Gaugers, and I have S-Scale, obviously, and I run high rail, and I also run it in dead rail. I use the S-Cab system, and it really works quite well. The main line is charged with a DC, And the basically by using dead rail, I don't have to, the sidings do not have to have any power. So it really saves me a lot of grief on setting it up and wiring and running trains.
Jamie, if he'd like to be on our show and talk to us about how that's run and so forth, I'd love to have him on the show.
Okay, well, we'll talk to him and see what we can do.
You can twist my arm a little bit.
Just like to show you that S-scale, you know, we're a modern and progressive bunch.
Yeah.
This is Mike Bile.
Yeah.
And he's from Virginia.
Yep. And I own CB Train Junction in Colonial Beach, Virginia. I've been an S-scaler most of my life. S-scale is the best scale. I've been doing a lot of American Flyer repairs and mods and custom cars and that sort of thing as well. So, but I also handle a lot of new stuff at the shop as well. So it's an interesting and fun place to be. So check us out sometime.
Jamie, I tell you, so far, everybody that you've introduced, I'd love to have their email addresses so I could contact them, because I'd really like to have them on the show, and I'd like to have them in, profile them in the magazine.
And you've seen nothing yet. This is Jeff. Jeff Junt has the coolest job in the world. Jeff Junt is the manager of the reptile department at the Detroit Zoo.
Yep. Yeah, I grew up in South Dakota on a farm.
So he likes the farm models.
I like the farm models, and I always collected since I was a little boy, 1/64 scale. And it came to the point where I wanted to build a little layout with farm toys, and I was just gonna like wanting to add like a static train or something to it. Well, let's just say it blew up into something really huge now, and I have a layout room that I built. I haven't built the layout yet, but I have the layout room completely built, and it's 18 by 39 foot. So we're going a little crazy here.
Room is a bit of an understatement. It's more like a barn, but anyway. Here's my partner in crime, Dave Hine. I couldn't have done this without him. There's no way I would have been able to pull off this convention with all the help. But say hi, Dave.
Hi. I'm sort of somewhat an anomaly because I'm mostly an arrow gauger, and SN3 and SN2 and sometimes other gauges in there. But I do also have a fair amount of standard gauge, and I'm working on a new layout, and I probably have about 30 dual gauge switches built right now.
There you go. Dave's never met he's never met a shade and like.
Yeah, this is true. I love geared locomotives.
Sure,
Right.
Dave, there's nothing wrong with narrow gauge. We like that just as much as standard.
Okay, and here we have Joe from American Models. So the sponsor of the high rail segment, here he is right here.
High rail, we do high rail, we have scale.
Yes, he has it all.
everything. We are the largest supplier of S-scale equipment, trains, and everything else in the world. So hope to see everyone else here, and thanks for having me.
Well, there you go, Jim, live from the NASG convention. So they went on 2 tours today. We had one tour to the Amish country, and everybody went around, had a good old time, or you had an alternate tour down to a little short line where they got to ride behind this little critter in a passenger car. Tomorrow they're going out for an RDC train ride in out of Reading. So signing off to mention.
Jamie, thank you so much for this. We really do appreciate it, and have a great convention.
Great. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Well, now I want to turn to S-scale high rail modeling. And this for the S-scale market is the same as O-scale high rail is for the O-scale market. And this is one of our first segments for this, but I think it's important to showcase the modeling that's being done by both the formal S-scale modelers and the S-high rail modelers. So if we could run I want to introduce the owner of American Models, Joe's boss, that you met Joe just a minute ago, Karen Bahisha. Karen, welcome. How are you tonight? You're muted, Karen.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, listen, welcome, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. I know you've been on a great vacation and haven't had time to get your video made, but next month we're looking forward to your video. But your Joe did a nice job talking about your company.
I think so. And I don't know how many people that are on here know about American Models. And we're a large S-scale only manufacturer, and we have locomotives, boxcars, track, roadbed, anything that an S-scaler might want. I know my late husband said that S-scale is the perfect size, wanted to make something that he could walk out of the room, have it running, go get a cup of coffee and come back and it was still running. And he succeeded in doing that. So, and we're just continuing what he started.
Well, Karen, I've heard a lot of people say that American Models is the go-to place for S-scale. So congratulations on building the reputation you have for your company and continuing it. And we wish you the best of success and look forward to seeing your video. And thank you so much for wanting to be the sponsor for this segment of our show.
Oh, well, thank you. And something I did want to mention, apparently there's some rumors out there that American Models does not repair anything, but we actually repair anything that we make.
And one thing too that I did not know that I think is important is that if someone wants DC plug installed in one of your locomotives, you'll do that for them. All you have to, they just have to tell you that they want it. You don't do it automatically. Your locomotives are fixed for regular DC, but if they want it fixed for DCC, all they have to do is let you know.
That's correct. And then we install a plug that they can then just plug in for their DCC.
Fantastic. Karen, thank you so much for being here this evening. I hope Joe sells a lot of your products at the convention out there, and hope you enjoyed your vacation.
Thank you so much, Jim. Nice being here.
Yes, ma'am. And the host for this segment of the show is Joel Weber. Joel, welcome. Is Joel muted or?
I don't see him, and I don't see anybody unmuted who's like just an iPhone or something. So I don't know if we're missing him right now or.
Okay, well, let me come back to him. So let me go to Sherri Johnson and her technology segment for our show. Sherri's going to be talking about cutters and CNC machines. Sherri, welcome.
Thank you. This evening I think it's going to be exciting. The tools that we're going to take a look at are, to me, fun. I like fun tools, fun machines. So let me get this going here. Last week we had a brief introduction to different cutting machines, and this week we're going to delve in depth with craft cutters and CNC machines. Now, craft cutters initially got their start in life as the big, huge vinyl cutters. They used these in the old-fashioned print shops. There might still be a few around, but they used to cut the big vinyl signs and the big vinyl pieces that you saw hanging on windows. And they basically used sharp knives or sharp hobby knives. And back in the old days, people would actually sit there and manually control these things to cut. Well, now, with the computers, of course, you can draw what you want cut and have the machine do it for you. Most of the craft cutters that are on the market can cut a huge variety of things. You can cut material, cardstock, paper, fabric, thin wood, plastic. Most of them, the new machines can actually cut materials up to 3 millimeters thick, which is pretty thick for a small machine that's using a hobby knife. Most of them also have an attachment where next to the blade, you can actually put a pin in there so that you could actually draw on your particular object versus cut, or you can cut and draw at the same time. This is kind of cool. It kind of works like an old-fashioned pen plotter when you put the pin in there. They also have blades that emboss which I've done this with cardstock and used the embossing head to actually put indents and create brick out of craft paper. So these cutting machines are very, very, you can use them in a lot of different ways. I mentioned that you use them on your computer. And again, one of the reasons we started the series with the CAD software is because, again, you need to create your vector image in one of the CAD programs, one of the 2D ones. You export that out as an SVG. The cutter's software, you upload that, you take a look at it, set the machine up, you cut the material, you weed out the unwanted pieces, and we'll see in the little video, I'll show you what that weeding means. And once it's cut, you can do whatever you want with it. The two most common craft cutters out there are, of course, the Cricut, which was first to market, and the Silhouette has come out a few years later. Both of them to me are comparable. I've now on my second Cricut, because I used the first one extensively and I actually wound up burning it out. I used it so much. And they're great. They're great for cutting. I use it mostly for cutting plastic. When we first did our 1950s bus kit, I was cutting the windows out by hand and it was taking me 30 to 40 minutes. My spousal unit said, let's go get a craft cutter. And I'm glad she said that because I went and got it. And I can now cut a whole sheet of 6 sets of windows in 2.5 minutes. Great machines. New to the market is one that's really cool, and I have yet to see a demo of this, but Brother has come out with something they call the Scan and Cut. The other two, you have to draw what you want in a CAD program and upload it. With the Brother, they're saying that you can take something that you've drawn on paper or something that you've seen on paper, scan it into the machine, and it has a built-in display. It's not a very big display, but it has a built-in display. You can update what you want cut, and it will cut directly from the machine without having to use the computer. You can use, they have a software so that you can draw things, but I thought this scanning part was very interesting because there's a lot of things where I would love to be able to take something without having to recreate it and just scan it and have it cut. And again, the machine has gone crazy here. Hold on just a moment. Let me get back to where I need to be. There we go. Little demonstration here of the Cricut. This is going to show you the machine, and it's going to show you the 3 different types of standard blades that you can get. The first one is a round blade, which is good for cutting material, thin things that could bunch, or if you use a knife, might snag. With the cutting wheel, it cuts it very, very smooth. Here you can see they have the pin attachment so that they can actually draw as well as cut at the same time. And here they're peeling away stuff, and that's kind of what weeding is. Here they're using a regular cut blade, which is a little thin, teeny tiny knife, and they're cutting this out. And again, they peeled away or weeded out the stuff they didn't want. And here they're doing this on sticker material. So if you were trying to do labels, you could actually cut your label and put it and stick it right onto something. Here they're showing where we can cut materials that are up to 3 millimeter thick. This is a thin balsa wood, and they're using what they call the deep cut blade to make these cuts. I've cut up to 2 millimeters thick. I haven't gotten brave enough to try 3 yet, but my machine is old too. That's so cool. This is like a poor man's CNC machine. These machines average in price between $200 to $300. Cricut actually makes a portable one, the junior one, which is actually under $100. Next up are the CNC machines. Now these, I want one. Remember, I mentioned earlier, somebody could gift me one if they want to. You know, we've got Amazon Prime days going here. But these versus using a blade actually use a drill bit, basically, like you would put on a router. And you're all probably familiar with those type of bits. And CNC machines can cut, they can drill, you can set them up so they work like a lathe and can cut. These, you do need the computer to draw what you want to do, and then it has a special software that actually controls the CNC machine to actually make the cuts. There are several out there, more than I thought when I did my research, but most fall into the category of 3-axis or 5-axis. which basically defines the range of motion. And we're going to see a slide on that in just a moment. Some of the CNC machines actually offer the option of a clamp-on laser module, so you could expand it in the future to be a laser cutter, which we're going to discuss laser cutters at the end of the month with a demonstration by Bob Davidson. So that's going to be interesting. Now, these degrees or these axes, what are they? Well, we've got X, Y, and Z. Basically, your X direction goes left and right. Your Y direction goes forward and backwards. And your Z direction goes up and down. Because in order to get that drill bit down into something or that router bit, you've got to be able to move it up and down to get it into your material. These are by far the simplest. You can cut, drill holes. I've used these, or I've seen these used to put holes in circuit boards. They're really cool. The 3-axis machines are what you're going to see for most home use because they are cost effective. You can get some right now, Amazon Prime, some are less than $200 for small format. You can get some for under $1,000 that are large format. They're pretty easy to operate. Software is easy to use. They're low maintenance and they're pretty high accurate once you learn how to deal with kerf and all that other funky stuff when you start cutting wood. Disadvantages, you're kind of limited to just, your X and Y and then moving up and down on thin materials. They say 5-axis machines are more efficient, and that's true because they can continuously cut things where here you have to raise up and go down and move over. And we're going to see a little demonstration of that right here, where we've got just a simple one that's cutting a lot of different materials. And mostly the drill bits or the router bits, if you will, are going to determine what materials that you can actually cut with them. And you can see here, these things make nice, smooth, once you get rid of all the dust, cuts. Yeah, definitely. That's on my Christmas wish list. The 5-axis machines also operate in the X, Y, and Z, but in addition, they can spin around each one of those axes. So besides going in the Y direction, they can spin around in the Y direction, which is really cool because this gives us a unique effect when we start looking at how we can cut things and mill things and grind things down in a continuous fashion. Their advantages, they're more efficient because you can spin around and up and down in all different directions at one time. They're more accurate because they can move along 5 different axes without having to change any tools. They can produce a large different types of geometry, where the 3-axis, you're kind of limited to what you can do. The 5 can do all sorts of things. The disadvantage, they're expensive. This is not going to be in my wish list anytime soon. If I do, I'm going to wind up getting divorced. They also require more training and more advanced software because of the different ways the motors are going to make the different cuts on material. And because of the way they cut and the amount of material they cut, they require a lot more maintenance, a lot more oiling and greasing and cleaning to make sure that they don't break down. And here we've got a sample of a 5-axis, and you can see here it's going around in circles. It's going to be going up and down and back and forth and spinning around. And it just amazes me how these work. And here you can see where it tilts, and you're working in all the different axes. Not sure what that plural is, but you can do a whole bunch of them. And you can see it here as it spins and it moves. Needless to say, with all of these machines, CNC machines, you want to make sure that you're in a well-ventilated area. You have dust collectors because these are going to create a lot of debris and dust. The 5-axis machines are usually in enclosed housings. The 3-axis machines don't really require that because stuff isn't spinning, but I recommend it because it's just safer. Especially if you're like me and you have cats and dogs that like to roam around and assist in the workplace. Having them enclosed is much better. And you can see here with this video, it shows the rough cut on the left and how smooth it did all that cutting on the right. And it did it with the one bit, and it just spun it around all those axes. Love these machines. Now, next week or next meeting, we are going to see how laser cutters work. That's our sixth type CNC machine, where we cut things without touching the material. And Bob Davison is going to do that presentation for us. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be very exciting as well. All right, any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Sherri?
Yeah, Sherri, you're talking about the 5-axis being so expensive. Are we talking, you know, a small car or a big car or a or a pickup truck?
We're talking anywhere from small car to really tricked out pickup truck.
Okay.
You can get a 5-axis for around 15 to 20,000 used, but they go up from there because they are really, really specialized. If you're going to start out, you're definitely going to be looking at a 2-axis machine. Yeah, there you go. 29, 30. Yeah.
Wow.
That's for a small 5-axis machine. And that's Alibaba. So, you know, that's going to be probably the lowest price you're going to find.
Yeah. All right.
So,
Thanks.
So Sherri, so Sherri, what's an average modeler? What's he need that kind of machine to do? Why would I need that?
You wouldn't. I would say the 3-axis machine is pretty much what we're going to look at, unless you start carving statues and figures and things like that, which I would say do that with a 3D printer. We're really not going to need a 5-axis machine, because if you want to cut a building or a building face or tracks or ties or, you know, things that are basically 3-dimensional but cut from a 2-dimensional plane, you're going to need the 3-axis machine, and that's the one that I'm going to try and purchase in the near future, is one of those.
So how many thousands of dollars are you looking at for
3-axis? You can start for around $200, depending upon how large a footprint you get, and if you want it enclosed or not enclosed, they go up to there. But you can get a really good machine, high-end, enclosed with a large footprint, for less than $5,000.
So if I was looking for one, what brand would I look for, in your opinion?
Right now, there's really no one brand that stands out, and there's so many out there that basically use the same stepper motors and the same software. I know the Genitsu, I think that's how you pronounce it, is the one that I'm looking at. GNTSU. They have a very good reputation, a lot of different bits, a lot of support, a lot of different size machines. They're available on Amazon, and the one that I'm looking at is in the $500 to $600 range, because that's all I need, because again, I make small stuff. Our O scale guys and G scale, you might want to look at a larger format, but the smaller formats are going to be good for the rest of us. Yep, there you go. All right, so I left out an M in there. So yeah, this is a great machine. Like I said, this is the one that I'm interested in looking at. So
anybody have any more questions? Sherri, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it. Outstanding information. Thank you.
Right. In the meantime, I'm just going to relegate myself to my craft cutter. So enjoy, folks.
I understand. Well, now I want to move to Tom Farrell, who had knee surgery, but he's recovering. Went to his physical therapist today, so he's not standing too well. He's sitting right now, but he is trying to desperately finish the Spillane building, which will not be done tonight, but he's moving toward completion, and next week he will complete it. So, Tom, we're looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again for having me. And my knee is slowly recovering. That was not physical therapy. That was physical torture today. So this is part 4 of the Mickey Spillane Watch Me Build New Tracks modeling feature. This is an original kit designed by Thomas York, who I've pontificated in the past is literally a living John Allen in our hobby. And he doesn't make kits, he makes pieces of art. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later here. Our sponsor for this program this evening is Frenchman River Model Works. They exclusively are making the Tom York Mickey Spillane building, the 50th anniversary kit of Tom York. And they offer HO, S-scale, ON30, and 1/24th building kits, boat kits, detail parts, figurines, vehicle kits. Regarding the O-scale building kits from Tom York, I counted 46 in all that they have on their website. And I have personally built a 34-foot lobster boat. We did a video on that. A multi-scale rusted hull that's featured in my Shantytown feature on my railroad. And I built a wooden fishing boat. They're excellent resin kit models. Now, I used to say that the art in resin kits is in the finishing of them. That's still true, but I've changed my mind on kits. As most of you know, I'm Mr. Scratch Builder. There's no way I could scratch build this model. This is truly a museum piece. That's the quality that we're talking about here. And I'm on part 4 here. And I think by part 5, I should finish it. But it takes, I mean, it's an expensive kit relatively compared to other kits in the marketplace. But I assure you there's a value here. If you finish this kit and take your time and finish it properly, you literally have a museum piece on your hands. It is a marvelous kit. So this is part 4. And this is where I left off last week. This is the first floor. I've painted the inside black, just with an acrylic inexpensive paint. And with the wood they provided, I'm putting in the flooring. So when you look down through the second floor into the first floor, or vice versa, from the first floor to the second floor, you won't see through the building. So they provide a cardboard for this purpose. I'm not a big fan of cardboard. So I took a piece of 020 styrene and I put 2 pieces in here. I super glued this in place. And then I cut this piece to the right here and I super glued it in place. And then I ran a bit of solvent, styrene solvent cement on this gap here to fuse these 2 pieces together. And then I painted it with that acrylic flat black. This wall here is just test fit for the photograph. It's not in place. So this effectively gives you a visual block from one floor to the other. I chose to use styrene. Probably would have been fine to use the cardboard provided. Next, these are the pillars on the outside of the front door. They're magnified here about 5 times. I sprayed them with a spray bomb of just this hunter green. And that, well, first I sprayed them with a primer, Tamiya light primer. Then I sprayed them with this green. Then I hit them with this acrylic gold. I want this to have a little bit of a Art Deco look to it. And this is the front of the building. So if you recall, I chose to model this in Indiana limestone, which is a buff color. This is the red brick on the side. And we always say in the limestone industry that limestone is the perfect complement to brick, and they are complementary colors here. This is the front door, and the pillars go right there. So it's sort of like an Art Deco look. And I highlighted the year here in white just to provide a little accent, 1891. All this lint and stuff, when I'm all done with the model, I'll go back with a Q-tip and some alcohol and I'll clean all these windows. So all through tonight's presentation, there's dust and debris on the windows. Pay no mind to that. That'll go away. you can see, I'm modeling mine with relatively light weathering. Tom York is doing a building that's past its prime. My building's in its prime. This is the turret. I will admit I had to go to the directions on this just to make sure I wasn't putting this together incorrectly. My little game is never to look at the directions, but I thought probably be best not to super glue this together wrong. So this is the top and bottom of the window section of the turret. It's basically two pieces here. Again, this is from sanding. I just glued this onto this. And now I have the top and bottom complete. Jump to the painting. Let me see, that's not a very good photograph. The picture on the left, basically it goes window, panel, window, panel, window. And this is what held me up this week. I don't know if it was me, but I didn't exactly get the greatest fit with all this stuff. So I had to go back and putty it. And incidentally, this would be normally I build everything that looks decrepit. This would be wonderful to leave it like this, in my opinion. I mean, that just looks marvelous. But I'm building the building in its prime. So what I did is I took this Tamiya putty and I filled all the cracks, sanded it and filled and sanded it. And then I sprayed it all over again, a base color. And then I began this Art Deco look. Again, this is still early in the program. I go back and touch things up, but this is pretty much my base colors. This is with pan pastels on it. I'll go in with a Q-tip and alcohol and remove this and take a little of this off. It's pretty heavily dusted right now. This is the right side of it. You don't have to get this perfect because I'm weathering it slightly. This is a nice look, gold, tan, green, gold. You know, they look nice together, these colors. There's the left-hand side. I'm going to put window shades in here. This is looking through the window section. I've painted this black and I've put in the glass. They give you the pre-cut, laser cut acetate for the windows, which is nice. There's the front of the building again. The turret sits right up on top there, like that. It is an impressive model. You really need to see it in person. I intend to finish this next week and take some really nice photographs. There's still a lot of work to be done here on what I call a bounce, where if you see this line, for example, this little green line, I have to go in there and touch that with tan. Then if I get tan on the gold, I got to hit it with gold. And I go back and forth till I get it perfect. This is pretty much done up here. I'm going to tone this weathering down a smidgen and clean these windows, but it's a striking model. It really is an impressive kit. And this kit has changed my mind on kits in general. If I can find quality kits like this in the marketplace, you know, I'm going to start making them. This is just a beautiful model, and it's relatively expensive compared to other kits, but you have to equate the value and the time. This one is not super glue 4 walls and put a roof on. There are a lot of pieces on this. There's a lot of different materials. There's resin materials. There's 3D printed plastic materials. There's wood. There's just all kinds of finished components, detail parts that come with this kit. It'll basically be a challenge to get this done by next week, but that's my goal. Another side view. I'm going to put similar window frames up here. A window goes here and a balcony, and they provide decals for these bricks. You'll see it turns out to be quite a model. It's the back. One of the sides. I mean, take a moment and look at that brickwork, which was hand carved by Thomas York. That's like a mosaic. It's like a painting. I mean, it's just phenomenal work. I chose this to be limestone here, but it's a stone. This isn't in place yet. So we intend to finish this next week, or I should get the date correctly. And thank you for your time, or thank you for watching this evening. Yeah. Any questions?
Tom, what's the footprint size on that?
It's approximately 8-9 inches wide by a foot long, approximately.
That's a good sized building, and it takes up a lot of space.
Yeah, I'll get you the exact measurements next time. I'll do a footprint, but so I say it's deceiving. It's not a shake the box kit. There's a lot to this, a lot of components, a lot of different materials. So in addition to the assembly, the art is in the painting, and I'm liking what I see so far. It's going to be a nice addition to my rustic buff and old Gothic railroad.
You mean you're going to put a kit on that scratch built layout?
I know it's sacrilegious, but I'm going to do it.
Two comments. One, Frenchman River has a terrific web page. If people are interested in their kits, go look at the kit on the web page. They put extensive photographs and even a video where they sweep around the building so you can see it from all four sides. And so you get a really good look at what you're getting. They also include a picture of all the parts. The other thing that I'll mention is when you think about the price of a kit, if you're like Tom and I and enjoy putting the thing together, you should evaluate it from how many hours of entertainment or enjoyment you get out of the kit and divide the price by the hours. And on that basis, with a kit like this, which requires you to spend some serious time to put it together, it's not a shake the box kit, the price per hour is much more reasonable.
That's exactly how this should be evaluated, because when I first opened the kit and in my opening video, I showed all those components. I still thought, I'll have this thing knocked out in a week and a half. That was not to be. There is a lot of time required here. And if you do what Jeff says, look at it in terms of you're going to literally spend hours and hours and wind up with a museum quality model. I tell you, I have no kits. This is one of the best I've ever seen.
Well,
Tom, did you ever tell what's the price of that kit?
It's over $300.
Oh, God. Oh.
But again, I wouldn't look at that hard number if you look at it in terms of literally 6 weeks of work is what it's turning into. It's very reasonable from an entertainment point of view. And it is a museum piece. It really is.
Wow.
Okay.
It's funny, as much as Tom likes the way they build it, they produce their kits, Frenchman River likes the way that Tom is building the kit. So I talked to Frenchman River, and Frenchman River has agreed to have Tom build all of their future Tom York design kits that they're going to be coming out with. And I forget the exact date of the next one that's being issued. I think the next one comes out September, October timeframe. And Tom will be building that early next year. So this is going to be a continuing saga, I think, between Tom saying how great their kits are and Frenchman River saying how great an artist Tom is and master craftsman Tom is in actually building their kits. But regardless of who's talking, there's no question about it. Tom York designed it, and Frenchman River has gone way beyond, I think, what it took to actually produce a kit of his design. And Tom, thank you so much for building it. It's really been a pleasure seeing you do this.
Yeah, hopefully next week we'll have nice photos and have it all done. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Hope your knee gets better and no more problems with that. So thanks so much. See you next week. And now I want to turn to Martin Brechbiel, NMR, for Martin's Scratchbuilding Corner. Now, I have to say, this is going to be a little longer than Martin normally takes, but this is the last time we're going to see Martin until September, because he won't be doing one next week. He won't be doing one on the 31st, because the 31st is when we introduce all of the winners for our scholarship. And that's going to probably take so much time, that show, that we won't have time for some of our regular segments. So this pretty well clears up what Martin needs to do to take some time off and kind of goof off from building. So Martin, welcome.
Off from building. Oh my goodness. Have you ever wondered how I managed to stay ahead of you on it? Wow. I need a month off just to get back ahead of you. Or two. Anywho's. So yeah, we're going right to the end point tonight. We're going to go through probably, I don't know, 150% more than my normal slide length, just to wrap things up, sort of. Probably. So here's where we left off last week. We got a box with a front and some scribbling and some framing and what have you, and some holes for window and doors. And basic rectangular box. Not too fancy, not too complicated. And yeah, we had an addition. So I kind of neglected that last week. But, you know, we put the addition together. It's just board and batten from, I guess, Northeastern. A lot of the same balsa framing on the inside, some 1/32 sheet on the top for a roof, and some framing around the bottom as well. Okay, so we put things together here. There's a lot here going on. So I've added a foundation. That's out of my own molds. That's some dental stone material foundation that's been scavenged from other things and copies made, and use a 4-in-hand to shape it and get the corners to join together. And we'll come back to painting about it later. There's a front deck. That's just some leftover stained coffee stirrers. Everybody's familiar with coffee stirrers. They stain up real nice, particularly if you slop all different types of stain on them. And they're actually a birch, so they're kind of hard. They're not like basswood, so they're a little challenging. Some front steps. The addition's been tacked on. It's up on steps, up on pillars, posts. Decided to keep this off the ground, not on a foundation. I mean, you know, you need a place for raccoons to live in the hot days right now. The front facade, well, we've got all kinds of extra little pieces of wood added on here. There's a piece of quarter round at the top. There's another piece of quarter round. There's some other pieces of trim quarter round, other shapes. This is a piece of trim that came out of an old Ambroid Pennsylvania Railroad X23 kit. I just happen to have a section of that left in my leftovers box. Just apply that over that one strip that I left bare. So we've got a little bit more ornate front here. It's not just plain clapboard and flat spots. And you can see got the main roof on, more 1/32 scribe siding. The addition is tacked on. When I say tacked on, that's just goo and some CA, slap them together, hold tight for as long as it takes, which is only a matter of seconds, and it's not coming back off. The only mistake I made there was I should have painted the foundation before I did it. It makes it a little more interesting to get in there with a paintbrush, but it can be done. And around back, well, we got some steps. You can see the foundation stones. One thing that drives me crazy, all these kits, you see the front facade is all ornate and everything, but the back is just a plain blank sheet of wood, and which is completely unnatural in every way possible. It had to have something there. So I've added a different size of a scribe siding, 32nd thick scribe siding. You put a piece of trim piece up here at the top, that quarter round in the front, and then there's a top cap the same width as that. That's HO1 by something that added up to the right width. Could have added actually overhang a little bit. It might have made it more interesting front and back. A little bit of trim wood around the front, keep the rain off. Some trim around underneath the roof here in the back. Well, we splashed some paint on. And I don't know what this is. It's a blue of some sort. It's polyscale. And one of the things I've learned over the years is you want a good stiff brush for slopping a lot of paint on fast, particularly when it's clabbered, getting it into all the joinery and overhang pieces. And even when you think you've got it painted, you flip it over, you find out you've got a whole bunch of skips anyhow, but a good stiff brush that you can really push the paint around with really helps a lot. And you get down to the edges, it's you want to be a little more careful with it, but you know, whoop, let's back up. Oh, let's go forward then. And you can see over here, our posts that the additions on there are a different color. I decided we might as well paint those green. There's a reason to paint them green. Eventually we'll see why. And some of the step, this is green underneath the framing of the steps. And you paint all the rest of the house, the building, this lovely color of blue. Get a little sloppy on it, but it's not going to matter because we're going to put a roof over that 1/32 sheet basswood anyhow, so it won't matter. And here's why we're using that green. We got to match the windows and the doors and the shutters. So we have some quick paint job here, 2 or 3 coats of the, I think this is polyscale, but it could have been Floquil. I have fond memories of the aroma wafting through the shop. And these are glazed with some acetate, a little bit of, but this being the Tichy window, it came with a laser cut piece of glazing and some window treatment material. So a little trimming, but it fits it drops right in and fits nicely, so you don't have to bother. Of course, you want to get just a little bit of black paint for the doorknobs so you can actually see them. Okay, we put the roof on. We got builders in scale, raised metal seam roofing. This is fun to work with. It's actual, it's aluminum, it's actual metal. I put that down with goo and some CA. You overlap, lock it into the seams where the standing seams match up. Save one of them for the roof cap. Pop a hole through. This is a piece of brass tubing, some brass sheet bent over, soldered together. There's your smoke jack. Shove it through the hole with some goo and some CA. Done. This is just paper. Tar paper roof. Well, use the printed paper, and it works very nicely. And you can see from the other side. And I like to leave a lot of dimples and things in it. It gives it a little more character. Okay, we go around front. We got some signage. This is the barber shop, and we've added the town barber. Yeah, and were you wearing that pink bow tie when you came in? As you might see, there's a little bit of red stuff on the apron of our barber. That's real blood. That's mine. Somewhere along the way, I cut myself, so I said, well, I'm not going to waste that. It's precious. It was supposed to be on the inside. We'll use that and put that right on the apron. So I don't recommend our barber. His name is on the door. For those who can't read it, it's Alan Bordillion Traherne. You may or may not recognize the name. The sign was just scavenged off the internet, printed out, trimmed down, slapped on some 1/32 sheet basswood, and little dab of glue and it's on the wall. And we just go around the sides and you can see there's the window for the addition. This foundation stone, there's about 7 different colors of gray, 2 different colors of green, and I think a little bit of aged concrete and a little bit of dirt, all polyscale colors. So I start with the darkest to work to the lightest and use less of each as I get lighter, and just keep going around and around until I get done. It's a little tedious, it's a little challenging working underneath this addition, but probably for the best, do it that way. They go around back and you can see there's a couple extra little colors, little splurges of little different lighting on here. Give it a little bit more character. And go around more, and we're done until September. So there you go. I hope we're on schedule or not. Doesn't really matter because I'm done anyhow.
Martin, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
What's the total cost you got in that building?
I don't know, $10. Add the cost of the figure. Artista figures are expensive. That's probably $8 right there if you had to buy it. I came out of one of the boxes I have of figures, but the rest of it, it's all DIY, leftover bits and pieces from other, the Grant Line parts. I mean, if you had to buy Grant Line packs, pack of 2 different doors and a pack of 2 different windows, that could cost you $15 right there just for that. But the wood's not expensive. But then again, most of the wood on that is leftovers, and I buy my wood in bulk. So I'm buying 20 sheets of 3-foot long clapboard. That lasts for a while, but over time, the cost of that is pretty cheap. It's not very much money. You stretch that out over 8 or 9 or 20 buildings, it goes down in price pretty fast per building.
Well, let's say you're a new modeler and you don't have an inventory, you don't buy bullshit. So you might have what, $50-$60 max?
Oh yeah, at the most.
So from one side of the coin for a no scale building, you scratch build it. You come up with something really unique that nobody else is going to build, and you got $50-$60 invested.
Yeah.
Or you buy a museum quality kit like Tom just built and is building now for us, and you may have $300 invested. And it just goes to show the variety, in my opinion, of what an O scaler, what an HO scaler, what a S scaler, what an N scaler can do in this hobby. It's all about how much work you want to do and how much effort you want to put into finding the materials and buying them and so forth, rather than having a manufacturer do all of that work for you and put it in a nicely packaged box.
Well,
it all adds up.
Well, that's part of it. The other part is I don't always know exactly where I'm going when I'm building something. I have an idea in my mind or in my mind's eye, and I have the freedom to do whatever I want with it as I'm doing it. And if I want to make a change along the way, well, easily done. There are no rules. There's no instructions. I'm making it up as I go. If I make up drawings, it's after I'm done. So
kind of shows you the variety of decisions model railroaders have to make. And that's what that to me is what makes our hobby so much fun. Martin, thank you so much. Now you can go goof off for 6 weeks or so and, try to figure out what else you're going to do.
If you could see my workbench, you'd know that's not happening.
Hey, I appreciate everything you're doing. Thanks so much, Martin.
Okay.
Now I want to turn to Steve Sherrill. Steve has a real surprise for us. He's going to involve another modeler in it, but he tells me that this is really going to knock our socks off. He says this is his premier What Do You Want to Talk About show. No one else has ever thought about doing anything as nice as Steve is going to show us now. This is going to be magnificent. It's one of the most beautiful What Do You Want to Talk About sections I've ever heard of. Hi, Steve. It's your turn.
Okay, I'm ready. Well, tonight we are going to talk about having an open house. Now, many of us have had our layouts open more than once. Some of us have had them open many, many times. But we don't always remember that first time that we said, I'll open my house, and raise your hand, you know, when they said, who wants to have the layout open? Well, tonight I have Greg Cassidy, who just had an open house this past weekend. Now, we know Greg, he's done a lot of things on new tracks, but I must say that I've been in his shoes having a first layout and also having a first operating session on a layout. So I'm going to ask Greg to come on now, and we're going to talk to Greg about what he went through to get ready for this open house. And of course, my first question would be, why now? You've had a layout that was finished, or you thought was finished, for many years. Why did you pick this weekend to say, I will have an open house? Greg, are you there?
Well, thanks, Steve. I suppose, like so many other things that I get involved in and then have second thoughts about afterwards, it was because I was asked to. And I have trouble saying no sometimes, most of the time.
Now, this was for the NMRA division, am I correct?
You're right. I'm a member of the Potomac division of the Mideast region of the NMRA. The Potomac division encompasses Central Maryland and Northern Virginia. And the Mideast region is all the way from Northern Pennsylvania down to North Carolina.
Okay. Now, you actually, your open house was in conjunction with a division meeting, am I correct?
That's right. They try to space their meetings, some in Virginia and some in Maryland, the Potomac being a rather large dividing line. And they were having a meeting here in Maryland last weekend, and it wasn't very far from my house. And they were looking for some layouts. I had never had mine on a layout tour before. And they said, why don't you give it a try? And I said, well, you don't know what that would lead to, but okay, I'll do it. And I had mine, and we had 3 other layouts on the tour. And this was after a morning meeting that the division was having.
Now, your layout had been, how far along was your layout, would you say?
Well,
8%? I mean,
my layout, I started it in 1994. And while I know a layout is never finished, mine was essentially finished in 1996. I ran trains. I kept adding a little bit of details, buildings here and there. And I had plans for a much bigger layout that never got built. But my layout was done to the extent that I still had some other things I wanted to do that I was going to get to someday. And that someday just kept getting pushed further and further into the future.
So you were actually almost 30 years from the time you started until you had your first open house.
Exactly.
Well,
and a good portion of that time, it sat dormant, and I'm ashamed to say that it wasn't really very much cared for, because as most people here know, my enjoyment comes out of building structures for myself and for other people. And so when I go downstairs, if I go to the left, I have the layout. If I go to the right, I go to the workshop, which is my real happy place. So the layout just it got neglected.
Do you have a picture of your downstairs, maybe to show where your layout is? And
I do, and if you're ready, I will go ahead and take you through a few pictures showing what getting ready for this open house was like.
now, when you volunteered to have your house open, how long a time did you have from the time you said yes until the time they walked in the door?
Well, I had about 6 weeks, which at the beginning sounded like plenty of time. And then as I got deeper and deeper into getting ready, all of a sudden that time got real short. So here, let me show you this is what my layout looked like. And I'll say probably it looked like this for the past 20 years. I had pretty much finished doing stuff to it. It's not a big layout. It's about 12 by 16, kind of a large L shape. It's HO and it runs on Digitrax. But when I say runs on Digitrax, I hadn't really run things for quite a few years. And with the exception of the few of you that are in dead rail, you know that that means the track is going to get dusty. It's going to get oxidized. And of course, the spiders are going to have a field day, building webs everywhere they want to. So this was my starting point. And I had about 6 weeks to get it running. And I will say at this point, I turned it on and I got the locomotive to move about an inch before it stalled out because of dirty track. Now, this portion, which is the whole front of the layout, is kind of this brown-green color. And that's the part that I had someday planned to finish because in my mind, it was never finished. I wanted to put foliage on it. Back when I was building it, ground foam was the foliage that you tended to use. And I just couldn't bring myself to covering the whole thing with ground foam. And these trees are just stuck in holes because I knew I'd be removing them someday to finish it. So that's why they're leaning, and every now and then one would fall over. So,
Greg, did you make all the trees?
No, I made some of them, especially some of the trees in the background. These trees in the foreground, if I saw a few that I liked at Timonium, I'd go ahead and pick them up. And knowing that sooner or later I'd get around to doing them proud.
Now, your layout construction would real basic.
Yeah, it's a basic L girder, bench work, and most of it is the cardboard web strips covered with hydrocal shell or a plaster shell, and just standard layout construction techniques that are used back in the 90s.
And it was a continuous type of run. I mean, it wasn't really built.
Yeah, it basically is 2 figure eights that in part of it form double track main, and a part of it crosses over the other part with a reversing loop and a yard and some crossovers and stuff like that.
Now, the reason I'm saying this is anybody who's hesitant to have their house open because they don't think your layout is interesting, it doesn't have 100 switches, or it's not set up for operation, you're making a big mistake.
Yeah, this is a very basic layout. The track plan that I started with came out of one of Lynn Westcott's books back from the 60s or 70s, I believe. And I did a slight modification, then added on some to it when I was building it. But it's a very simple layout. It doesn't lend itself really to operations except for 1 or 2 people at the most. But when I expressed all of those doubts to the people running my division, they said, it doesn't matter. People like to see layouts. Your layout is fairly close to the meeting, that they always like not having to drive too far. And I said, well, okay, I'll give it a try.
Now,
my first step was cleaning everything off of the layout so I could get it running. And that meant taking the cars off. And as I was removing them, I would clean the dust off of them with a brush or a can of compressed air. And I did the same thing with the locomotives. And I stored everything away, including taking off all of those trees. And then I had pretty much a bare palette that I could work with. I removed the couple of buildings that are in the front there so that I could get to all of the track and clean it. Now, one of the nice things about having to do something like this, I came across things that kind of needed fixing or upgrading. As I was taking some of the cars off, I could tell that they weren't maybe up to weight, and I didn't notice it when I had put it on 20 years ago. So I was able to fix some of that. I was able to add some details that I had always wanted to some of my scenes. I made the little wood pile and I picked up the truck. And this is my pulpwood scene that I had never really completed. And I also was able to add the telephone poles that had been sitting in a drawer on my workbench for probably over 10 years. I put them together, I painted them, and I finally put them in place running down the road that I had meant to do, honestly, a couple decades ago.
So you actually renewed some interest in.
Oh, absolutely. And that was the fun part is, I needed this kick in the pants to actually get around to doing some of the stuff that I'd always wanted to do. But then came the hard part, which was cleaning it. There were a couple of areas that had pop-outs that I used to be able to fit in 30 years ago when I built it that I don't fit in anymore. So I had to use a long pole with a brush to get some dust off and clean a few things off. And then came the onerous task of cleaning the track. And I got out a couple of chemicals that people in our model railroad club swear by. We have one camp that says CRC 226 is the best thing in the world for cleaning track. And we have another camp that says, no, you need to use mineral spirits. They'll really clean the track. So I ran my track cleaning car around. And since I basically have two loops, I used the CRC on one of them and the mineral spirits on the other to try and get my own idea of which one worked better. And when I was done with that, this is how the track came up using the CRC. And this is how the track was after using the mineral spirits. So there was no conclusive evidence that one was better than the other. And I'm sure there's probably lots of clinics and lots of opinions about the best way to clean tracks. All I know is that I got all of my trains running, and that was really what mattered the most. I also went in and cleaned all of the wheels on my locomotive because I know that they had been running on dirty track or trying to run, and they'd been sitting for a long time. Stuff can oxidize. So I cleaned off as many of the wheels as I could as well. Now came the part that I had wanted to finish and never got around to, and that was doing the scenery on the front part of the layout. And this is where I got some help from Bob Geldmacher. As some of you may know, he had worked with Scenic Express, and he knows a lot about putting down scenery. And I had told him I had been using Martin Welberg products, and he said, also take a look at the Heike microfloor. It makes a good base to put down underneath the Martin Welberg products. So this was some of the Heike microfloor that I put down as a base, and I put the trees back in place so that I would know where they're going to go as I was putting the stuff down. I just used white glue to glue this down, and it was going to be the base underneath the Martin Welberg product. And so I had been collecting these over the years, and I used some of them on dioramas that I built, and I can't speak enough about how much I like his products. But this was going to finally use a lot of the materials that I had been collecting over the years. And it goes a lot slower because you're putting down very minute pieces at a time if you want to get the type of variety that you're going after. And I put a chair there, and I'd come down and work for a few hours and then do something else, come back, do a few hours more. And I did that day after day after day. And I knew I wasn't going to get all of the layout done in time for the open house, but I did want to have some of it done so people could see my impression for how I wanted to finish it. And this is how it ended up coming out in that one section that I'm doing. And like I say, the Martin Welberg products are second to none in terms of their realism if you apply them properly and you use the variety that you see in nature. And so this is how that scene came out. And it was good enough for me that, and I'd finished this about 2 days before the open house was supposed to come. And I said, well, I made it. People will now see my vision for how I plan to finish off the rest of the layout. And I was actually looking forward to getting some of their opinions about, you know, some of the other areas. Should I have it more wooded? Should I have it more open and stuff like that? And not having it finished gives you the opportunity to have some of the visitors to your layout express their opinions if you ask them. And I had cleaned up the rest of the basement as well, which again, that needed a lot of work also. I had put up our club's banner that we use for our scholarship program, and I even had our club's little N-scale layout over here in the corner with it running as well. So we actually had 2 trains running during the open house.
Great. Before you go back to that slide for a minute, please. You see those doors? Greg was kind enough to notify the organizers of the open house meet that weekend that he was handicap accessible because they could go around the back of the house and have no steps to go in. So if somebody came with a wheelchair, they could probably get in. If they had some other difficulties, they didn't have any steps to maneuver over.
Yeah, so, it doesn't even have to be a wheelchair. I have one friend who he uses one cane, but he does have trouble with stairs. And, you know, being able to access it on a ground level like this, even though they have to come down a little bit of a hill from the front to the back of the house, would have made all the difference.
So if you're considering having an open house and you have access, make sure you tell the organizers, yes, I'm handicap accessible at my house. Also, I like the way you got your buildings displayed. You've got your some of your cars.
Yeah, and you also want to make sure that you have seating because, you know, some of us have trouble standing for a long time. Now, you know, I was enjoying it, so I didn't mind standing, but the seats were very much appreciated by some people, especially if they were on their second or third layout during the tour.
Now, I see that you actually cleaned up underneath the railroad.
Yeah.
Really, I noticed that. And what people see and the image that you portray is very important when you're having an open house. If you can put the stuff, you know, someplace else and have it look really neat. It goes a long way. Presentation. If you notice on the table down here, I believe that's a sign-in book. Am I correct?
Yep.
A sign-in book on your visitors.
So, and I also put together a little sheet explaining my layout, you know, what my idea for it was, you know, the era and the location, and how I had built it, when I had built it. And those were just handouts that people were welcome to take if they were interested in it.
Yeah, you're modeling the Western Maryland. So you have an actual prototype railroad you're modeling. All your locomotives and diesels are painted Western Maryland, and a lot of your cars. So you actually have a setting, you know, you have a location. So that goes a long way for the story of your railroad, why you have it like it is.
Well, and one thing that I really appreciated, 2 of the guests that came by were friends who worked together. They were both Amtrak engineers, although one of them had retired. And he was looking at my locomotives, and he made a very nice compliment that I had actually gotten the proper Leslie 5-chime horns put on the Western Maryland locomotives that I had, that Western Maryland used, but that weren't that common, and that he appreciated the extra effort of getting the correct type of horns on it. And that made me feel good that somebody who would know so much about them actually notice that.
No, the small detail too.
Yeah, and then the day of the open house came, I went to the meeting, and they had two very nice clinics there, which I really enjoyed. Plus, all the business meeting that the division goes through. And then I came back home and I had a couple of signs. They gave me some layout tour signs to put in front. I had one on each side of the mailbox. And then I also had the one that I had made because I didn't know it. They were going to give me signs. So I put that up by the door. And I only managed to take one picture during the whole open house. And that was when people first started showing up the rest of the afternoon. And the open house went on for 4 hours. I was busy with trains running the whole time and answering questions and meeting with people. We'd go into the workshop and they'd ask me questions about how I did this or what was that tool used for, what kind of paints did I like, stuff like that. But I have to say, and I think this has already been alluded to, my layout was not the hit of the open house. One of the reasons that I agreed to do the open house was I went to my wife when they first approached me and said, honey, how do you feel about having an open house? They want to put me on the layout tour. And she goes, you mean I can make snacks and food for people? Yes. And I said, okay. So this is my lovely wife. She collects railroad cookbooks. You see a number of them there. Some of them are books that just have recipes that the railroads used. And a couple of the ones she has are actual books that the railroad used for its dining staff and cook staff, showing them how to cook and how to serve ingredients. So she picked 4 snacks out of those books that she wanted to make. And I made a placard for each one of those. And you can see them here. So out of the B&O, she made an assorted cold cut with deviled eggs. The Milwaukee Road had a type of fudge that they offered. The Western Pacific had celery that was filled with a mixture of peanut butter and something else. And then the Missouri Pacific lines had deviled eggs. No, the deviled eggs were Western Pacific. Missouri Pacific had the celery. But she put all of these together, plus she made lemonade because that's what they tended to serve on the railroads back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And people left the house talking about all the snacks and all the food and how good it was to see something that was made the way it was made on a dining car back in the 40s and 50s. And so that was the hit of the show.
That was fantastic. To me, that's just a knockout. I mean, to get her she volunteered to do it. That was even more. But that was just
Well, and the newsletter editor for our division, he said, Greg, I'm putting in the article, the photos of all the different layouts, because he had come around the day before the open house to take pictures of the layouts so they could all be represented in the newsletter. He said, Greg, send me a picture of those snacks because that's going in the newsletter as well. So.
I think that was so unusual. I had never heard of that. Anybody doing that. And that was just, as someone who actually got married on a train, that was very unusual. Very unusual.
Well, she's an unusual woman. She's a great cook. And she really has some great ideas sometimes. And this was one of them. And it just happened to fall into her wheelhouse where she had been collecting these recipes and these books for a long time. So
it worked out well. And she wanted to show off that new kitchen too. Now,
well, that was part of it. That was part of it.
But the thing is, you really can't be afraid to have if you have a layout, share it. And I think there's nothing like having people over talking about your layout. They can give you hints. Not everybody's going to like your layout. Some of them are going to like something. They're not like everything. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But it's your layout, and you can be as proud of it as you want to be. I would only offer one suggestion to you, Greg. Next time you have an open house, you have somebody else there to help you to run the trains while you were, kind of herding the people up to eat those snacks.
Uh-huh.
I think, if a person's been there to run the train could have maybe done, changed out some locomotives.
Well, I did have one of the guys from the club came over and he hung around the afternoon.
Yeah.
So that helped me out. And he was able to explain to people, if I was busy with one group of people, he could explain a little bit about it. He was familiar with it. He was familiar with our club's N scale layout. So it did help to have him there.
So you ended up with how many people coming over?
About 27.
Now that's a pretty good turnout.
It is. We're a small division, and we're a big division that has a small active group. So I was pleased with how many came by.
You're also spread on both sides of the Washington Beltway, which means you can't move half the time you're in traffic. You know? So
yeah, there were a number of people at the meeting who had come from Virginia, and as soon as the meeting was over, they hightailed it back to Virginia because the likelihood of getting caught in a traffic jam for a couple of hours is always there.
Yeah. Now, I would like to ask if anybody who is on the Zoom now, who's had an open house and had want to share their experiences. My open houses, I used to get 40 and 50 people coming in, and I just didn't have the room. I have narrow aisles, and it was a real problem. I know Greg was kind of lucky they were spread out for 4 hours. So you might have had 7 or 8 at one time. Am I right, Greg? I don't think everybody.
Yeah, there was a couple different waves. I think, some came to my layout first. Some went to one of the other two that was really close first. Yeah. And then came to my layout. So there was a couple different waves.
So does anybody else have anything they want to say about the layouts? I know that NMRA is a great way to see a lot of layouts. Other ways would be to go to a hobby shop. Sometimes they have certain times of the year when they have people who patronize them have their layouts open, and they have a weekend, and you get a schedule of where the layouts are and their locations for that weekend, and you pick it up at the hobby shop. So, once a year. And I know, like Blue Ridge Summit, I believe they're a sponsor here. They're going to have one in September, I think. I'll have to get the date on that. And there'll probably be 20 layouts on all around the area in Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia even, and Virginia. So it's a good opportunity to see other people's layout, what they're doing, and learn things and share and meet other modelers. That's the important thing. It just see what's going on in the rest of the modeling world. There are people out there that just want to talk model railroads, and it's a great opportunity. So,
and I have to say, Steve, I have been on probably 12 different layout tours, each one stopping off at anywhere between 2 and 6 layouts. Between the division and mainline hobbies, every year has a layout tour where they can feature 20 to 25 different layouts.
Yeah.
And in all those visits, I never thought about what it took to get ready for it. Now, some layouts, if they have operations every week, probably don't have to do much. Maybe just put out some snacks or set it up to run continuously instead of in operation mode. But for some others, it might take a little bit of cleaning up, a little bit of cobweb removal. But it was good in so many respects. It was great to clean the layout up, to get it running again, and just to share it with everybody else and have everybody come by.
Hey, Greg.
Yes.
It's Tom Farrell. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Now that your layout is back in quote running condition, have you found yourself running trains again?
I have. But I will say that I know right now what I'm looking at and what I've started doing is going back and finishing the landscaping that for the rest of the layout that I had only started in the middle of it. And when I'm done with that, I'll have a big backlog of structures for other people that I need to get to. So will the layout be running continuously? I can't say.
What I found is when I work on my layout, I shouldn't say this new layout, but my old one, which had continuous running, this new one isn't ready for that yet. But I would run the trains round and round while I was working on the scenery or the structures, just for fun.
I can do that, and I hope to, because I know now that I have cleaned the track, I don't want to have to go through cleaning it from having sat for 10 years with nothing running.
Well, that's what I'm indicating is while it's running, run it.
Yep, exactly.
It's good for everything. You, the railroad, the engines, the cars.
And I will say, one of the things I found out, and I go back to, 25 years ago when I was having to clean the track, and, I'd hit it with a bright boy. And now, I think most people know that's probably not a good thing to do because it scratches the rail, and those little micro scratches can pick up dirt and problems like that. But just the amount of different philosophies on how to clean the track and different products to use, that could be a whole clinic or a series of clinics in itself.
And that probably would make a good clinic. One other question. Did you find when you did clean the track that the electrical system was intact and robust and you didn't have to go and troubleshoot anything? Did you
everything was good, except I have one crossover, and it's an old Walthers or Shinohara, circa 1994 crossover, that when the locomotive goes over it, my sound unit restarts. Now, I don't have keep alives in any of my locomotives. In fact, all of the decoders in them I put in back in the mid 90s. So they're that old. But everything worked fine except for that one crossing.
Well, that's a testament to the stability of your wiring. Yeah.
Yeah. I did enough stuff right now. I did have to have a refresher course in how to get my Digitrack system running again. I had to have a friend come over a couple months ago and say, okay, you push this, you push that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That darn thing has so many buttons on it.
Wow. New ones are a little different.
Now, do you think you're going to change any scenes on it, on the railroad?
I don't know. To me, just, updating a couple of the scenes like I did makes it feel almost like a whole new layout. I've got telephone poles on it now. I do have plans to put a billboard on the back of it that I have sitting at the workbench. But I'm still at the point of just adding little details to it.
Yeah.
There won't be any major changes to it except for finishing the landscaping.
That's what catches everybody's eye, is the little details anyway.
Yeah. And I enjoy doing it. I've been doing it for the last 10, 12 years, building dioramas. It's just then you're working in a very small, maybe a 1x1 or a 1x2 space. Now I'm working in a 12x16 space. So I've got a lot more details to add.
Now you know why you bought 5 of those detail parts instead of just 1.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody else have any questions about open houses or any additions or suggestions or anything like that? Has anybody had an open house?
I've been to several open houses. Never had one personally, but
Now,
I've enjoyed everyone I've gone to. So the Piedmont division of the NMRA here in Georgia has what they call the Piedmont Pilgrimage. So from starts August, September, and runs through Thanksgiving, and different members open up their houses on the weekends to do the different tours and layouts and stuff. And some of the stuff I've seen, it's just amazing what can be done. I did realize in the one tour that we did where the layout encompassed the entire basement, and they even had tunnels cut through the walls, including the bathroom downstairs, which they had a camera mounted to the train. So I opted to use the restroom upstairs versus the one downstairs. But that was quite unique. But there's some amazing stuff out there, and I love going to see what other people can do. So I highly recommend. Even if you don't think it's good enough, I say do it anyway, because there's always something cool to see at other people's places.
Now, from your standpoint as a non-model railroader, what really caught your eye? I mean, when you walked in, did you notice, hey, it's a really clean area, or it wasn't, or they had a fantastic shop, or, I mean, it's huge. The layout is huge, and I was overwhelmed. I mean,
yeah, some of them are huge and overwhelming. Some of them, just the techniques that were used to create objects that were on the layouts. Just looking at the detail and the scenery and everything that can be there. We even took my mother-in-law to a few, and she was just in awe between looking at the scenery and then watching the trains move, and it was just amazing. Matter of fact, she learned how to make trees and started making trees for us to sell, because the bush that this one person was using for the trees in their layout grew outside of her apartment. So that's how I got a lot of trees, was she decided to make trees for me from going to one of these pilgrimages. So it just looking at what people can do, scratch built, kit built, we went to one that had just a wall of brass engines that were all shiny brass colored. And he's like, yeah, that one was $75,000 for that engine. And I'm like, okay. And then you go to another one, it's like, yeah, that's my, American Flyer I had from when I was a kid, or, I scratch built this one, or it's just, each one has their own special, unique things. So it's hard to say, but just looking at the detail that goes into these, it's amazing.
We put in a lot of work getting ready for an open house, but it's really a thrill when we see people appreciating the work that we've done. I know that, I used to work really hard to get my layout ready. And you're always so fearful that 10 minutes before the opening date, the opening time, the thing won't run, because it's very important, I think, to have a layout with movement, to have those trains running. And it's just great to have an open house, I think.
From a non-model railroad, it's great to see the open houses. I enjoy them every year. So
yeah,
keep them up and open them up.
Yeah.
Sherri, can I say, we also have a gentleman in our club who has a pretty extensive model railroad in his basement, and he has part of his main line go through the bathroom as well. But he doesn't have a camera in there.
Okay, well, and they were doing live streaming, because the people that couldn't fit downstairs in the basement were upstairs snacks with the wife, and they were live streaming the train video up there on the large screen TV. So yeah, we didn't use the restroom downstairs.
Oh my God. Yeah. So anybody else have anything about open houses?
Steve, this is Jeff. I'd add, for folks who want to get to an open house and they aren't a member of a club or something, that sort of the NMRA, if you're in driving distance of Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania, their event and their list of open houses is really impressive. You can go up and visit 4 or 5 layouts in one day.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to do some down in my area. I think Steve Bittinger, myself, and another OM30 layout, which is pretty close by. we're gonna have our layouts open. So I better get mine ready. Charge those batteries up. How about you? Have you had your layout open yet?
No, it's only been under construction for about 2 years on and off. And so I have not, I'm thinking that maybe the first thing I do is we have some sort of round robin in our club and visit each other's layouts.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, like I say, you don't have to have a big layout. It doesn't have to be finished. It's good if it has something that goes around in a circle or have movement, you know?
Well, that was the first thing I accomplished was to make sure it ran. And then now as you know, I'm a structure builder and I tend to overpopulate my layout with structures. I have to switch them out. And now I'm really intensively into filling in the scenery.
There you are. Well, my goodness. People like to see scenery going up. You know, it doesn't have to be finished.
Well, then come look at my scenery because it's not finished.
It won't take long. Once you get started, it goes pretty quick. Goes pretty quick. Well, I guess that's it, Jim. We're tired of sharing and eating those cookies.
I'm telling you, it's a lot of fun to have an open house. There's no question.
I'll tell you, you know, Craig is so lucky to have his wife, you know, participate. Not only participate, but take a lead. And she was able to share something that she was interested in. And that was just fantastic. To me, that would have made the whole visit. I probably would end up talking to her and, you know, getting her story because you don't see that very often. You know, and it's important to have wives that will participate in these open houses. If as greeters, it's very important. I know as a model railroader, I always like to see the wives. I like to see the wives, even the children, the kids, you know, participate, come down and talk about grandpa's trains or dad's trains or whatever. It's just a good way to share. It's a great hobby. Great hobby. So that's it for me.
I agree. Thank you so much for doing this tonight, Steve and Greg. Fantastic. You ought to send a couple of photos, including one of all the food, to Martin, because that would be a great article. I think it really would be.
Okay, I'll get something to him. And Steve, thanks for mentioning this.
Oh, no problem. You know, I contacted Greg actually yesterday, and I asked him if he wanted to participate in this. I just thought it was a timely, subject to put out for people. And he said yes. And I wanted his wife to actually come on and talk about making the food and reading the books, but you can't get everybody to do everything, but it's really great that she did that. So I want to acknowledge her participation in that open house.
I think that was fantastic. No question about it. No question about it. It's funny. The last open house I had was right before we moved out of Michigan. And I think Fred Cosgrove was there. And it was for the Detroit United Trolley Club group. And we always had a good turnout, from different people coming to your house. So I imagine there was probably around 25 to 30 people. Mm-hmm. But the funny part about it is the wives would also come. And the wife of whoever was hosting it, she hosted mostly the wives, and the guys would go and run the railroad. But the wives would come and see. At least they wanted to come and see the railroad and see who else was involved with their husbands and so forth. And it was an interesting group. The group was interested in one thing. Purely one thing. Where are the sweets and where are the Coca-Colas? And So you had, I mean, just bowl after bowl after bowl of M&Ms and nuts, and so forth. And then you had the main course, which was normally chocolate cake. And it wasn't your normal chocolate cake because this group believed in eating.
Yeah.
And which meant that you went to the local baker. And you know those huge baking sheets that the bakers have, you know, when they're serving a huge group of people?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you'd buy. And you'd lug that thing home and cut it into pieces. And before the night was over, most of it was gone. But everybody was happy. They had their sugar high and plenty of Coca-Colas and root beer and so forth. But it was a great group of people. And it's unfortunate that club is disbanded now. But those kinds of organizations and being able to get together, that part of our hobby is, I hope we never lose that.
Well, you know, my wife has a cake pan shaped like a steam engine. So we make cake. Yeah. So that's kind of unusual too, but you know, so, but we just, you know, it can be so much fun. I mean, they're just sharing the hobby. Yeah, it's just great, you know.
Well, it is. And if Fred is still here, I don't know whether he's got still, but it's funny. I never got my railroad ready for anybody to come over. Most of the guys want to come over and get my railroad back running again. I mean, we spent a lot of time. People would repair this, do that, and fix this, and so forth. I mean, it was worth hosting them just to get the railroad running again.
Wow.
But anyway, thanks so much, Greg and Steve. It was a great segment. I really do appreciate you all doing this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
And so now, Phil, I think that's our show for this evening. Unfortunately, I got an email from Joel Weber, and he didn't realize that he was supposed to be here this evening. He's in Ohio and away and doesn't have great internet connection, so he will not be able to join us this evening. And I'm sorry that we missed him, but I do so appreciate Karen coming and talking about her company, American Models. And next month, hopefully Karen can be here and Joel can be here too at the same time to complete that segment. And I do apologize for that. It was just miscommunication, and those things happen. It's a live show. We do the best we can. So Phil, if you could run our caboose for us. Jeff Jordan, thank you so much for sharing your birthday present with us. I mean, that was just a fantastic trip you took, and we so appreciate you sharing your video. Well, that's it for this evening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. That's what it's all about. Thank you so much. See you next Wednesday.